Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you for coming. I know some of you have come a long way. This is quite a momentous day for me, and I didn't expect necessarily to be here. Well, I didn't expect to be here at all, in fact. But we are here for a simple reason, and that is to announce our intention to launch a new political party called For Britain. This was the name of my campaign when I was standing for the UKIP leadership, and I think it's perfect. It sums up in two small words exactly why we're doing this, exactly for whom we are doing this, and it's the importance and significance of the fight that we have ahead of us. And I want to thank Jan for everything, and Jack and Lucy and Neil and all these incredible people that have helped me along the way. We have an enormous battle to fight, an enormous battle to fight. We aim to do nothing less than bring truth to politics. And when you're trying to bring truth to politics, you'll find you have a lot of opposition. People don't necessarily want a lot of truth in politics. But we do it to defend a country that we love. And we believe it deserves to be preserved for future generations. And despite the demise of the integrity of the nation state over recent decades, the UK is not a piece of land. It's an identifiable nation with a defined landmass, a defined jurisdiction, a government, citizenship, an economy. And we in For Britain recognise the immense sacrifices that others before us have made to bring us to a free and civilised country. We also believe that we must preserve the freedoms and the civilisation of Britain for future generations. We believe we have a moral duty to do so. And we also believe that our freedoms, our civilisation, is currently under attack, is currently being steadily dismantled. Our loss of free speech, for example, and this can no better be demonstrated than in our inability to criticise, for example, globalism or mass migration, mass immigration to the UK, or, of course, Islam, without being slandered instantly and falsely as a racist. Our greatest task when you're promoting truth is to overcome lies. And they've, of course, already started. Far right, BNP. But I would ask any journalist listen to this, and I've asked them before, but I'll ask them again. And I ask them mostly, not because I think they'll respond, but mostly to point out to the public the lack of integrity it takes to print and publish obvious untruths. So I hope there is still some integrity in the journalism profession, and that instead of calling me far right on all the headlines, just publish what we actually say and then let the public decide if we are far right or not. Of course, we are not a far right party. We believe in democracy, we believe in the will of the people, and in a government that is held to account, not just in theory but in practice. And we therefore oppose the European Union as an unaccountable, top-down system of governance. We believe not only in Brexit, but will work with allies and friends across Europe in an attempt to bring down the EU altogether and restore the voice of the people. Democracy, journalists, is not a far-right concept. We believe also in equal rights for all British citizens. All will be subject to the law as determined by elected members of Parliament. And we fundamentally oppose the true racism that manifests in a 2- or 3-tier justice system. Now, at present, policing in Britain takes into account racial or religious identity of the perpetrator or the victim in a criminal case. And this, they are making political decisions when they decide whether or not to even investigate, much less prosecute crimes. They are wondering about what the political fallout will be while making these decisions. The police should have absolutely no concern whatsoever about who we vote for or what our political opinions will be. Their job, they're not social workers either. Social issues are not the concern of the police. They are there to enforce the law and enforce the law only, and they are there to do it without any consideration for race or religion or any other factor. The rule of law must be restored. And For Britain will therefore seek to make police accountable to the public for their failure to seek justice. And that is justice for all, irrespective of race or religion. And none of this is a far-right concept. And we believe that the rule of law is non-negotiable. And the law will be applied, and there is no availability of an opt-out. We believe in the individual rights of British citizens, who will be treated as individuals on their own merit and not as communities. We believe in the freedom to speak our minds, and most especially our ability to tell uncomfortable truths or express uncomfortable or unpopular opinions. We believe in the equality of rights, value and dignity of men and women, and we believe in the protection of children from all and any kinds of abuse. Because we believe in justice. And we believe that justice is broken. Justice is broken when a person can get a jail term for a Facebook post, but a police caution for rape. Justice is broken. And we believe in personal responsibility as fundamental to a society's health. And this doesn't mean that people can never be forgiven for a minor transgression. This is not what we're talking about. It's about people taking responsibility for their actions. And we believe in freedom of thought and of conscience, of self-reliance and the value of the individual. And we do believe that all of this is real in Britain. It is here. We do have it. And though we're not always perfect, we have to aspire to protect and improve the great culture and society that we have. But we know that these freedoms can be taken away from us. They are being taken away from us. And they can be replaced by a totalitarian system where some opinions or thoughts are criminalised, where religions are protected from criticism, where the concept of the nation state is destroyed and its defenders rendered criminal. We have to fight this tyranny. We have to fight this tyranny, and we will fight it in the name of Britain. We accept that we do not live in a theory, we live in reality. And our ability to live our lives as we see fit, with restrictions only for other people to have the right to do the same, that is our liberty. And it must be actively protected from both internal and external threats. Now, currently, the internal threat to our freedom and our democracy comes from an anti-democratic, not just undemocratic, but anti-democratic and anti-nation state elite. And it despises the freedoms of Britain and the Western world in general, and seeks to force all people to hold their political views and to agree with their views. And this can be seen in many, many examples, such as teaching children in schools not how to think, but teaching them what to think. We see it in a biased mainstream media, which is so biased, it doesn't even seem to realise it's biased. That's how biased it is. And it treats some opinions as inherently immoral, rather than just dispassionately presenting things to the public and allowing the public to decide. The external threat comes, whether we like it or not, in the form of mass migration from societies in which the majority do not believe in our values and freedoms and who fundamentally reject them. Common sense has to tell us that if you allow mass migration from countries where a majority believe you should be killed for insulting their religion, you are opening your door potentially to hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who think you should be killed for criticising their religion. What do we expect to happen? There is much like intolerance, there is a paradox in liberty, the concept of liberty, that if you give liberty to that which is illiberal, then you risk destroying liberty itself. It's like tolerance. If you are tolerant of the intolerant, you will destroy tolerance itself. So we must actively defend our liberties. And one of the ways we are going to have to do this is to, again, whether we like it or not, and I don't like it. I don't like it. I wish we didn't have to do this, but we do. And one of the things we have to face up to and deal with is Islam. And indeed all totalitarian systems. But one of the biggest problems we have with Islam is that we are not allowed to criticise it. We can reasonably so criticise things like communism. We can certainly criticise Nazism, but we've left another totalitarian system alone. And we're not only not criticising it, but the state is actively protecting it by persecuting those of us who do criticise it. We have to wake up to this. We have to wake up to the notion that if we continue to allow mass migration from Islamic societies, we will end up with a Sharia society. We will. It's already happening. And we are importing great crime as well, knowingly importing massive crime. I mean, just take female genital mutilation for an example, and where we ought to be using our common sense. 97–98% of Somalis practice FGM. Now we know, therefore, that if you have immigration from Somalia, you are going to have FGM. You are going to have FGM coming into your country. And then when you introduce a policy of multiculturalism, and when the police don't want to know, and they simply don't want to know because it's too big, how can we possibly prosecute 65,000 cases of FGM? We can't. The police would be doing absolutely nothing else if we really went after this. So our choice is to let it happen. Our only option is to let it happen. And that's exactly what we're doing. And the consequence of that is a complete breakdown of the rule of law in the UK. And also the breakdown of the authority of the majority. We have to restore the authority of the majority. The people in the House of Commons, whether we like them or not, we put them there. We put them there. And the laws that they've introduced, until we've gone crazy recently, but in general, over the last 100 years or so, they have they've legislated laws that reflect our values. So, for example, child abuse used to be a serious crime. Rape used to be a serious crime. That was a reflection of the values of the majority. Now, since the borders were open, and not just ours, but the whole Western world, we have imported criminal offences, things that we find abhorrent in our values, and we've just allowed them to happen. I want us to stop allowing them to happen. I want the British majority to be heard again, and its values respected again. We must stand up for it. Now, we will take our message to all corners of this country, and we'll reach as many people as we can. We'll tell them that our message is a positive one. It's one of justice and freedom. We're opposed to grotesque cruelty to children. We're opposed to abuse of women. We're opposed to religious intimidation and violence and political intimidation and violence. We want a free, just, open society where we can speak our minds and vote for who we want to vote for, and that person then represents us in a democratic parliament. This is the basics. These are the basics of democracy. We have to fight for them. And our purpose is to give a voice to the ignored, the ordinary working man and woman who bankrolls this country, but rarely has their opinions listened to. We will also offer active support to ex-Muslims. This is key for me. I'm delighted to say, a couple of brilliant ex-Muslim activists on the team already. They're actually in Blackburn at the moment planning an event for support of ex-Muslims. Because there are people in this free, democratic country whose lives are in danger. They're on the run for their lives because they've left their religion. This should not be happening in Great Britain in 2017. People should not be suffering it. So we have a lot of plans in place. We will learn as we go. We will strive as we go. We're going to be a very hard-working and working a lot. I couldn't think of quite the word, but working a lot. But it's worth it. It's worth it. We've had a two-party state. We have a two-party state. It's Labour or Tory all the time. We can't put up with this, especially when they're singing from the same hymn sheet on the most important, fundamental, existential matters. None of those two parties is going to stop the mass migration. None of those two parties is going to enforce the rule of law. They won't. They won't. And recently, I discovered at least that nor will UKIP. So we need someone new. We need someone fresh. It will be extremely, extremely difficult. But we have right on our side. We are right. We are telling the truth and we're right. This is our biggest, most important weapon. We are telling the truth. And we are just, we are decent. My followers all over the country are decent, ordinary, hard-working people with good morals. I'm called every name under the sun in the paper. We're living in 1984. We're living in a world where the evil has elevated itself to good and the good has been reduced and trampled on. But we are not helpless. I am really optimistic about our chances. There is a wave of passion among the public for truth. And we can see it, we see it happening, we saw it happening in Europe. And people have said to me, you know, but Marine Le Pen lost. She came second in the French election. She came second in the French election. And if the EU hadn't thrown the kitchen sink at her in the last 2 weeks, she would have won it. But, you know, we see she came second. There is a shift. There is a political shift occurring. We're right in the middle of it. We saw it as well in the United States with the election of Donald Trump. Just in time, if I may say so. Just in time. If Clinton had won, it would have been the end of the USA as we know it. We really need to... The USA is a positive force in this world, as far as I'm concerned, as a free country, and it must remain one. But there is nothing immoral about loving your country. There is nothing, no matter what the left-wing commissars may tell us and may dominate the media with and may teach your children in school, there is nothing immoral about loving this country. That is what we are. That is what we'll do. We'll do everything. We'll strive. We'll fight. We'll continue to persevere and push to tell the truth, to save this wonderful, wonderful country. We'll do it all for Britain. Thank you very much. Thank you. I was really nervous about that, so thank you. Should we have some questions? Let's have a chat then. Let's have some questions.
How do you plan to set about organising this party? Are you looking for volunteers in different areas, different branches, different counties, that sort of thing? Can you enlighten us?
Yeah, at the moment, I'm focused on getting us ready to take membership. When that happens, if we have a couple of weeks, see how membership is coming in, we'll then start to look at branches. I've already got a few meetings set up, different parts of the country where I'll go and speak to people. And what we'll do, we haven't put it in our constitution, which will be on the website. We haven't put it on our constitution how we'll organise ourselves, but we'll have a rule book. And what we'll do is best practice along the way. We'll try to avoid some of the pitfalls that come with branch organisation and see what the best practice is as we go along and then write the rule book in accordance with that. So as I said, I mean, we have a lot to do. There's a lot of work. We have a lot to learn along the way. But there's certainly, we certainly can't organise the whole country. The few of us, so we will definitely be looking for volunteers. But for the moment, we'll get the membership coming in, see where our membership is and see where we've got high numbers and we sort of assess it from there. But as we go along, find out what best practice is and then enshrine it in rules and spread it around the country. Because I do want to avoid some of the pitfalls I've seen in UKIP, for example.
Thank you.
Hi, Pam.
Marie, would it be better at the beginning just to have membership as a collective rather than even try to start sorting out branches and
It's difficult to do because we've got people from all over the country. I've got people from Scotland interested, and I can't physically, myself and Jan, we can't physically organise people in Scotland. So we're going to have to, I want us to be big. I want us to be huge. I think it's inevitable branches are going to develop. I know why you're rolling your eyes. I know why you're rolling your eyes. But I think it is inevitable. It's going to happen. People are desperate to set up groups in their own area. And it's difficult for a central few people to organise it all. We just have to have faith in people and have faith that we can stamp on any problems. The template will be on the constitution will be on the website. The constitution is done. Yeah. We'll be okay. We'll be okay. It'll be great. Actually, I have huge faith. I think we're going to be huge. I really do, and I think it's inevitable that that branches are going to develop. But I do know why you're rolling your eyes. I do. But we want to be a nationwide. We want to be a nationwide party.
I think you need points of contact, though, don't you? A human face. If you're going to have foot soldiers and fighting local elections just online,
we do.
You've got to have a point of contact.
And we need local manifestos written by local people with local issues in it. I do know, but I just think it's inevitable. I just think it's inevitable. If we get as big as I think we're going to get, which we will.
We need to create more democracy in the branches, though. That's the thing we need.
Can I just say a word to you about this? Because parties don't arrive fully formed, and we've had 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So,
No, we're doing great.
It's going to evolve as it goes along. But initially, as members come in, we want to get them active straight away. So we're going to have first response. I call them my first responders, but basically it's somebody who's going to phone up the member and say, right, how can you be involved in working with the party? And then we'll get them communicating with other people. And groups will gradually come together and form. I've already had people say, are we going to have an LGBT branch? Are we going to have Young for Britain? And my feeling is, why do we need them? Why don't we just have people who talk to each other?
Yeah, don't divide into
14-year-olds.
That's the way of the left, that siloising people.
Yeah.
I don't care what somebody's sexuality is, I care about the content of their character.
Exactly, yeah, we're all just people, so that's my feeling. I hadn't even spoken to Anne about that yet, she didn't know I was going to say it.
No.
That's my feeling, is
not
just
to go down that
just
line.
put people in contact with other people, because if you've got the 80-year-old and the 14-year-old, the
Who cares what
80-year-old can teach the 14-year-old about
all sorts.
doorstepping and policies, and the 40-year-old can teach the 80-year-old about social media and what the kids are talking about these days. So it's all an exchange of information and
We don't need
views.
to be in groups.
Have you ever tried to organise anything? It's a nightmare.
They probably want to stop being organised in the way they have been, and then just go, right, we're with you.
Is that what you call it, organisation? Sorry, I had to get that.
But you have to. You have to have some sort of local, with people in local issues. You do.
Think how to avoid those pitfalls.
Yeah,
Because
we
the
definitely
anti-talk
do.
Taking over all the energy was going into the pitfalls and not into campaigning, and that's why I would like not to have that experience again.
Okay. We'll do our best. I mean, another matter, of course, is morale. When people contact me, desperate to help, I can't say no. We're not. They have ideas and they want to, and you've got to be very careful not to reject people who are coming to you with enthusiasm and great ideas. But we will. You've still got that worried face. I'm trying to get it, but it's not. It's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere.
For all those that are supporting the party, as we would be, where do you visualise the mainstream funding coming from? Sorry, my apologies.
These are the big questions: the organisation and the funding. These are the two most difficult questions.
Let me transform that, or change that question ever so slightly. For those of us that do support the party, how do we support the funding?
Do I mention the membership fee structure?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, no.
And I hope I'm right about it. Membership fee. Branches and funding are the three most difficult things to do when you're starting something like this. It's been a nightmare. We have been back and forward and back and forward. So we will have monthly fees from people who can decide themselves what that will be. This allows people with few funds to support us and people who would like to give us 50 quid a month or more to do the same. I think it's a wise decision and it's unique among political parties and I think it's the best solution, which is also the cause of the delay for our website, which we had to go back and change. Well, Neil had to go back and change. I didn't have to do anything. Neil had to go back and change a lot of the software. So that's what, look, I would love it to be fully funded by ordinary Joe public, giving a few quid a month. I would absolutely love it. But reality is we're going to need quite a bit of money. We're going to do a tour of the country, which will cost us money. I want to go and speak in as many places as I possibly can and hold public meetings and send out leaflets through people's doors introducing For Britain. We're having a public meeting here on this date. Please come along. I think that's our best way of reaching as many people as we can, but it will cost us. It will cost us. No, I'm not going to turn away someone who very generously offers me a big cheque, I can assure you. And there are some people, perhaps in the pipeline, willing to do just that. But my preferred scenario would be a few million people giving us a quid a month or 2 quid a month. That's my preferred scenario. But look, reality is, if someone offers me a big cheque, as long as they don't want our principles in return, the principles are not for sale. They're not for sale. So we will certainly, and if this video is going out, we will certainly welcome anyone who's feeling generous and happens to have a big bank account. Do get in touch.
Yeah, hi Anne-Marie. Thanks for your address. Wonderful, absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
I only had to walk around the block to get here to this meeting, so it was really easy for me. I've put no effort into this. I have a question. You talked about the two-party political structure which has come pretty close to destroying this country. Have you had any approaches, or have you made any approaches to other small political identities who also feel marginalized and also feel the pressure from the overbearing media rant, which we see in our papers and online every day? Have you had any thoughts about bringing in organizations who, perhaps some charities, which would assist with the voluntary grassroots in the party, perhaps other political organizations who have been marginalized and blackballed, to be perfectly clear, because you can't possibly be the only person in this country who wants to stop this abuse.
Yeah, one thing I definitely want us to do is campaign hard and heavily for proportional representation. We simply have to. We simply have to. You know, there's a sort of a tradition about first past the post in this country, and as much as I love British traditions, this one has to go. Because we are not, there's simply no representation of millions of people. And we've got real concrete examples now that we can use of the injustice of it. And the 2015 general election is a perfect illustration, where the Scottish National Party got fewer votes than UKIP and ended up with 50-odd seats, while UKIP came out with 1. This is a concrete example we can use to persuade the public that we need proportional representation and to get a sort of a movement going against it. And in that, I'm very happy to work with any other organisation, well, not any other, but ones that are acceptable, I guess, to campaign together in all our interests for proportional representation and an end to first past the post. It simply has to be. It's no longer fit for purpose. It has turned us into a two-party state, and the rest of us is just left shouting on the sidelines, which really isn't good enough for our democracy. So it's going to be a key campaign issue for us.
If you cast your mind back to the hustings in Burgess Hill, 14th of August, I asked a question there about the array of threats facing justice, liberty, the rule of law, and you've spoken about many of those things today. I don't know whether you recall, I followed that up with an email to you with it was 3 pages bullet points about all the things that threaten those valuable things that we're trying to defend here. I don't think we should underestimate the power of the globalists and the extent to which they have infiltrated every single sector of public life. I mean, how many people here, for example, are aware of the Common Purpose Pseudo-Charity? So this is an organisation that's been going for 10, 15 years or something like that, during which time they've infiltrated every single government department. They're in education, health, justice, policing, emergency services, armed forces, central government departments. They trained 130,000 what they call thought leaders. And so there's a network of people who are connected through this very secretive charity, who are actively seeking to undermine every single aspect of democracy and our nation. Added to which there seems to be a network of paedophiles operating at the very core of our government. There seems to be a great deal of corruption in the police and in the judiciary. We have got an enormous task on our hands if we're going to put all this stuff to right. And one of the things it's going to take is the courage to organise our thoughts on all of these issues and to present them in a palatable way. So when I try and do it, it came to 3 pages of bullet points. You could write a book about each one of those things. A challenge is to pick the ones that are going to resonate the most with people and to present incontrovertible proof that these things are happening and what the trajectory is for us all.
Yeah. I mean, we're witnessing the slow march through the institutions, this complete takeover of the public sector. I completely agree with you, and common purpose is not widely enough known about. I think as a party we ought to try and change that. It should be an issue for us. I'd like us, in fact, even to organise an event around it and get people in to speak about what's happening in justice and even the health service and local government. And this, as I say, the slow march through the institutions. We do have an enormous battle. We do have an enormous battle. We are up against the entire machine. We're up against the political machine, the media machine. We're up against the whole lot of it. But just imagine how much worse it would be if we weren't. If we weren't here at all, if they had no opposition at all, just imagine how much worse it could be. We have simply no choice but to fight back. We have no choice. If we don't, no matter how difficult it is, no matter how hard it's going to be, how long it's going to take us, if we don't do it, we just hand the country to them. We just hand them victory. We have to fight them. We have to fight them. And it being difficult is just not good enough reason not to. We have to do it. We have to do it. I think someone else had a hi.
You talked earlier about helping to bring about destruction of the EU, which I'm totally in favour of. What do you plan to do in terms of liaising with overseas European parties such as the Front National, PVV in Holland, AFD?
Yeah, I will contact them. I mean, I've already, I know Geert Wilders, but I have met him and spent some time with him. And other people like the Front National, the AFD in Germany, we will make contact with them. Hopefully they'll respond if we can get groups research groups across the continent who are opposing the EU, and they're bound to exist. So just because we don't read about them in the mainstream media, they are out there. We will find them. We will actively go out to find them and ally ourselves with them to inform the people of Europe just what the European Union really is. It's all about information. They are fed an endless diet of propaganda nonsense incessantly from the mainstream media about the EU. We must counter that. We have to counter it. We have to tell them that the EU was designed from day one to take the power away from the people of Europe. That was its design. Elections have effectively become a showpiece. We're going through the motions. All we're actually voting for is someone to implement the EU's decisions. That's what every nation state is voting for. And we have to make it clear to people as well, particularly to young people, that we are heading towards the current trajectory, and it won't change as long as there's an EU, is greater and greater unity, greater and greater dominance by an unelected clique in Brussels. And we have to make sure people understand that they are losing a say over their own lives. And to have to make people understand how important and significant that is. You are being dominated by a small group of people who decide how you're allowed to live your life. And you get no say in it. You've got no way of removing them, no way of holding them to account. We have to get this message through to people. We have to show them for the corrupt. I mean, even their accounts are never signed off. That is how corrupt it is. And then the final sort of kick in the teeth to the European people is they're transforming the entire continent beyond all recognition, and we have no say in it. I saw a video on social media a couple of days back of what it said was a small town in southern Italy. Now, it could easily have been in Pakistan or in Afghanistan. This did not look like Italy. And I think that's a shame because I think, Italy is an ancient European culture and it deserves, again, to be preserved. The EU is knowingly and deliberately dismantling the nation states in Europe, knowingly and deliberately dismantling them. They're neutralising the identity of European peoples, removing their culture, insulting their culture, denigrating their culture, which multiculturalism itself is an aspect of, is an example of this. Multiculturalism is making a statement that our culture isn't any better than anyone else's. All cultures are as good as ours. Well, I'm sorry, I think our culture is better than many, many other cultures, and we should say so. So I'm really determined to talk differently about the European Union, to talk about a monster, the monster that it is. And as I said before, it's not just undemocratic, it's anti-democratic. It wants complete power over us all. And it's getting it. We're giving it to them. We're giving it to them. We need to stop. We need to stop. Right.
I'd like some mention somewhere along the line in all of this of the words common law. Because English common law is the most sublimely, brilliantly decent system ever applied anywhere. Wherever English common law went, better countries developed, better systems, and everybody had more freedom, liberty, and justice. So that is being undermined. It's not taught. Lawyers are not taught common law now. It's not. Oxford and Cambridge. If you're doing law at Oxford and Cambridge, common law doesn't get a say. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Even though Bill of Rights 1689 is still on the books, definitely.
I mean, this is key for practice,
it's key.
though.
It's foundational. It's Magna Carta, Bill of Rights, and it's cultural norms. It's the magistrate system until common purpose comes in, and they are undermining it from within.
Destroying it.
Destroying it.
Utterly destroying it.
And partly their weapon is education.
Oh, of course.
That's the main weapon. They choose what they teach, and it's not what should be taught.
Yeah, I want to take over I want to take over a society, take over its primary schools. Absolutely. This is the communists have always done it. The totalitarians of all sorts. The Nazis did it. It's to start with the children and teach them not to think, but what opinions to hold. They get rid of objective thought, objective thinking, objective truths, and everything becomes a political position, and only their political position. And it's taught as inherently moral. And its opponents are presented as inherently immoral. And this is what is happening right now in schools, in I presume, every school in this country.
Yeah, yeah.
Every school. And the National Union of Teachers has to be held to some kind of account. Who are these people? Who are these people? They have the future of the country in their hands. We need to know who these people are. And I mentioned this quite a lot because it's really important. When legislation was introduced to teach British culture in schools, the NUT at its national conference passed a motion refusing to do it, saying that this would be a mark of cultural supremacy, and instead they were going to teach international values. There's some 1984 language for you right there. There is no such thing as international values. We do not have the same values as Saudi Arabia. We do not. We have completely opposite values, and our values are superior because we do not stone people. We have got to say these things. There's no such thing as international values. It's an Orwellian lie designed once again to denigrate our culture and pretend that it isn't better than others. It is. It is. Thank you.
Can I tell you a real life story from a few days ago in a school in Woking in Berkshire, one of my private students. He's got a maths teacher who, I wouldn't do it as a maths teacher, lets them use their mobile calculators in maths lessons. And this lad has a picture, his cover page is Trump. Nothing racist, nothing barbaric, Trump's face. This teacher came over and said, get rid of that immediately, that's racist, you can't have it in my classroom. This boy refused to do it. So for 2 weeks he was picked on every lesson, and it got to the point where one day the teacher actually framed him for something, and he was taken to the head teacher, he was excluded, and then 2 other students had the courage to speak up and say, this is all fabricated, because he wouldn't take Trump's picture off his page.
It's quite shocking. It's quite shocking. I hear horror stories like that all the time, especially when Trump won. Actually, stories like that started to come out of I remember reading a story about a school called the police because a kid had accessed UKIP's website. Called the police. How insane is this? How insane is this? This is the level of control. And of course, calling the police, the message is what they're trying to do. It's to send out the message. This is how bad UKIP is. We even call the police. This is how bad opposing opinions. Anyone who opposes us, we call the police on them. We're calling the police because of people's opinions. That is the situation we're in. And when you say it like that, and it dawns on you how serious this is, how serious this is. And yet we have a wider public completely unaware of of the implications of it, the consequences of it, of the tyranny, and it is tyranny, that they're passing on to future generations of Britons. We can't allow it. We can't allow it. It's the biggest fight. Education is one of the biggest fights we're going to have.
And the consequence of this young lad, he found me on Twitter. He's nearly 16 and saw the party. And he said to me at his lesson on Tuesday, I'm not 16 yet, can I join this party? So are you having a lower age? Yeah, he wants to join. He wants to join. And his parents do as well.
Yes. We'll see. We'll see. We've got a few more things to get through. So hang around and have a drink with us. And if you've any more questions for me, throw them at me then. But we've got a couple more people to hear from. So that's it from me. But thank you ever so much. I really, really am very grateful to you all. Thank you.
We will make America great again.